Hi, it's Dan with Infinite Lives, and I am talking to Mark about Dwarven Descent. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing really good, thanks, Dan.
So, what's this game? What's this game about? Like, I played it. I played it really briefly. It kind of seems like a puzzle game with dwarves.
Well, we call it an action puzzle crawl because basically it's a real-time dungeon crawl that you do, but you use rotating hex tiles to basically reconfigure the dungeon on the fly. And so you're trying to connect the dwarves to loot while disconnecting them from traps and enemies. And that's basically the core mechanic of the game.
So, where'd you get your inspiration from? Whenever I think about like dwarves and I'm playing something on PC, I'm thinking of Dwarf Fortress or stuff like that. Like, where did you? I mean, what inspired this game?
What inspires the game? This is the honest truth. Part of it was I saw the original Hobbit movie, and so I was really into dwarves at the time. I was like really, and I had a lucid dream where you're like, I had this vision of like the dungeon changing, and as it would change, just different mechanics would happen. Like the dwarves and monsters would be in the same dungeon. They would fight. They would go out and fight each other. But then
So it came to you in a dream?
I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's true. I actually woke up and I'm like, man, I have to write that down, right? Like every once in a while you have those moments like, I have to write that down. So that was the basic idea though. And then from that, I told my partner Lane, like we started prototyping the game and we realized you could do a lot mechanically that's really interesting with just that central premise of you change the dungeon layout on the fly. When things are connected to the dwarves, they act like one way. And then when they're disconnected from the dwarves, they have a different kind of in-game effect or behavior.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool concept. I don't think I've seen that. If I have, I can't really remember. Like changing a dungeon around, maybe not the different effect.
There's games I think that are out there where you can change dungeons. I think where we differ is in the real-time component of it, that there's a set dungeon that you change on the fly, and then that makes all the different mechanics actually come into play and change really dynamically, like moment to moment.
So is it kind of like is it kind of like an endless, kind of like you just go puzzle after puzzle, or is there kind of like a branching storyline or something like that?
We're authoring all of our levels because what we're doing is we're actually telling a story of these dwarves as they descend through the earth. They're actually going back in time. Like the geological strata of time, as you go deeper, you go further back. Well, they're going through all these lost ages of the dwarves, and they realize that their race has been doomed to rise and fall right through the millennia. So basically, they're going down to the origin of this curse to figure out why their society's never been able to hold it together.
Okay. So I saw there was like several characters. You know, it asked me to pick four dwarves out of this cast of characters. Are there more dwarves that you kind of find along the way, or
right now we just have the 6. That's interesting. Will there be more characters? It's actually something we've talked about, and there may be. But right now, like just from the play space that we have designed, we have those initial 6 dwarves that you pick 4 at any given time to go on an adventure. Yeah.
So, where are we in the development of this game? Like, are you kind of happy where it is? I think you're early access.
Yeah, we actually have specific things we want to do with early access. We think that our systems are in place, about 90% there. We feel like a lot of the main mechanics are in place, but combat, even the dungeon presentation, the perspective of it, how we view a multi-screen dungeon versus a one-screen dungeon, are things that we actually would love to get people in early access to help us figure out, right?
Cool. What's your background in game development? I'm guessing that you have some experience, or did you really just wake up from a dream and go, I'm going to make games, and this is the game I'm making?
I worked for Wizards of the Coast for a number of years. And
so you're local?
Yeah. And then my partner and I, we started Tinkerhouse Games 4 years ago. So we've been doing game design together for a while, Lane and I, for like 4 years. So it wasn't just that suddenly, I'm going to go do a game. It was like we were already a game company.
So you worked for Wizards of the Coast, and you only started thinking about dwarves when you watched the Hobbit movie?
Well, no, the specific, like this idea, this world, this IP, yeah.
Have you played 5th edition? I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah, I think it's cool.
Yeah, I like it much better than 4th.
Yeah, I really like it, I do.
So what other kind of games do you play? Like video games
a lot
or
of tabletop games.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, I also play a lot of video games when I have time. I mean, full disclosure, I'm a dad, so I don't have as much time as I used to at the studio. But yeah, like when I play, I like turn-based stuff a lot. I like role-playing games, like I said. Board games are really cool. When I play video games, I kind of tend more towards the RPG or turn-based side of the fence.
Yeah, I like kind of like building up like my character. Yeah, getting a story going. So how's the reception been so far? I mean, it's kind of I mean, it's a unique idea. It's different. It's different from like, we're shooting everything, we're blowing everything up. Kind of deep, dark kind of thing. It's got like a more cartoony feel, I want to say, a little bit. So what's the reception been like? How people have been playing it?
It's been good. I think with Dwarven Descent, what you have is you have people that understand it because it kind of lives in this world between real time, like action adventure, but then thoughtful, like strategic gameplay because you're manipulating the dungeon. When people come in and they play it and they sit down and they start getting the idea of, oh, I'm going to change the dungeon, it brings about this game environment. I'm going to maximize that, and then I'm going to change the dungeon again. When they get that, they really appreciate it. So I actually think that it's got its niche players for sure. At a convention, it's kind of tough sometimes because it's so much spectacle, right? But I really do. The people that are sitting down and enjoying it, they're really getting it. So we're happy about that.
Very cool, very cool. Well, thank you so much for your time, Mark.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks,